The iPhone 18 Pro Max could cost you $200 more than last year. The bill of materials alone is expected to rise by nearly $300 over the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and that's just the 1 terabyte model. But the price is not the story. The story is what Apple is trading to get you to pay it. And there's one thing about this phone that literally no other reviewer is talking about that changes everything about whether this upgrade is worth it. We'll get there. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is launching September 2026 alongside the 6.3-inch iPhone 18 Pro and Apple's first ever foldable iPhone. The more affordable iPhone 18 and iPhone 18e aren't coming until spring 2027, which means if you want a new iPhone this fall, the Pro models are basically your only option. So yeah, Apple has engineered a situation where you either go Pro or you wait 6 months. Convenient. I've spent the last several weeks going deep on every credible leak, supply chain report, and analyst breakdown I could find, and there's one spec, one number that made me actually stop and reread it 3 times. We'll get to it. Let's talk money first, because this is the thing that's going to determine whether this phone is for you before we even get to the specs. The estimated bill of materials for the 1 terabyte iPhone 18 Pro Max could approach $900 in component cost alone, compared to roughly $550 for the iPhone 17 Pro Max. That's a $350 jump in one generation. Now, a higher bill of materials doesn't mean the retail price goes up by the same amount, but it absolutely affects what you pay. Apple is reportedly weighing an average retail price increase of about $200. And even that is said to mean Apple will see reduced profits on the new flagship. Think about that for a second. Apple raises the price by $200 and still makes less money per unit than before. That's how bad the component situation is. The two biggest cost drivers, NAND and DRAM, because of global component shortages, followed by the new 2 nanometer chip and its advanced packaging. Apple is also upgrading the Pro Max to 12 gigabytes of RAM, up from 8 gigabytes in the previous generation. More RAM, better chip, bigger costs, and here's where Apple gets creative. Apple has several ways to soften a price increase, including removing lower storage configurations, raising the starting storage tier, and adjusting pricing differently across regional markets. They did exactly this with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. They dropped the 128 gigabyte option and made 256 gigabytes the entry point, which made the price increase feel less direct. So when Apple announces the starting price and you think, okay, that's not that bad, check what storage tier that actually starts at. That's the move. Okay, let's talk about the part that actually excites me. The iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max get the A20 Pro, Apple's first chip, built on TSMC's 2 nanometer process. The current A19 is on 3 nanometer. That step down in node size is expected to bring real performance and efficiency improvements, including better battery life without sacrificing speed. Now, 2 nanometer sounds like marketing until you understand what it actually means. Smaller transistors, more of them per chip, better performance using less power, which means your phone runs faster, gets hotter less often, and the battery lasts longer. Without Apple needing to put a bigger battery in, it's the closest thing to a free lunch in consumer electronics. The A20 Pro, paired with 12 gigabytes of RAM, is also expected to unlock the full range of iOS 27's AI features, including Siri's new context awareness and enhanced on-device processing. And that matters because the standard iPhone 18, when it eventually comes out, may not get the same full AI experience. So if you're in the Apple Intelligence ecosystem and you actually want it to work at its ceiling, the Pro Max is where that ceiling lives. Here it is, the thing I mentioned at the start, Apple has never, not once, put a variable aperture on an iPhone. From the iPhone 14 Pro through the iPhone 17 Pro, fixed aperture every time. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is expected to change that. At least one of the iPhone 18 Pro models is expected to gain a variable aperture lens for the main camera, which would let users manually adjust how much light gets to the sensor, cutting down on overexposure, and giving new control over lighting and depth of field. This is not a software trick. This is not portrait mode with a slider. This is actual mechanical blades inside the lens physically controlling how much light enters the sensor. A variable aperture requires movable blades and an actuator directly in the lens's light path. It's the kind of system you find in a DSLR on a phone. And here's the catch. The added bulk of this camera system is reportedly the reason the iPhone 18 Pro Max gets thicker. And that variable aperture component reportedly costs Apple 50% more than the current fixed aperture lens, 50% more. So it's not cheap, it makes the phone thicker, and it makes it more expensive. Which brings us back to the question, is it worth it? Honestly, if it works the way I think it works, yes, because right now, the only way to control depth of field on an iPhone is to let Apple's algorithm guess what you want. Variable aperture means you actually get to decide. That's a genuine pro tool in a phone. The photographers watching this right now know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, let me say something that's going to upset some people. This phone is going to be thicker, probably noticeably thicker. The iPhone 18 Pro's body and camera plateau are expected to grow roughly 2 millimeters, putting overall thickness at around 9.9 to 10.9 millimeters compared to 8.75 millimeters on the current generation. For context, that's approaching 1 centimeter thick for an iPhone in 2026, when the iPhone 17 Air exists and is basically the width of a credit card. Now, there's some debate on how thick we're actually talking. Some reports say the body itself is getting thicker. Others say it's more about a bigger camera bump with the body staying the same size as current models. So this one is genuinely contested, but here's what isn't contested. Battery capacity is only expected to increase by less than 1%. So whatever extra space Apple gains from the thicker body goes almost entirely to the new camera architecture. Apple is not making this phone thicker to give you better battery life. They're making it thicker because the camera system they want to put in it is physically too big to fit in the current chassis. This suggests Apple may finally be admitting that computational photography cannot repeal physics forever, and I kind of respect that. For years, the pitch was, our software makes the photos better. Now the pitch is, we built a better camera, different vibe entirely. There's a storyline running alongside all of this that is genuinely interesting. Tim Cook is expected to hand over the CEO role to Apple's John Ternus around the same time as the September keynote, making the iPhone 18 Pro, Pro Max, and Fold launch Ternus's first major event in charge. His first event, flagship phone, plus Apple's first foldable iPhone, plus potentially a price hike. No pressure. The keynote event is tentatively set for Wednesday, September 9th. Pre-orders are projected to begin on Friday, September 11th. iOS 27's general release is anticipated for September 14th or 15th, and the iPhone 18 Pro Max is slated to go on sale on Friday, September 18th. Mark that. September 18th. And one more thing about the foldable. Apple's 3 most expensive iPhones are all coming this fall. The iPhone 18 Pro, the iPhone 18 Pro Max, and the iPhone Fold, which could cost upwards of $2,000. IDC actually thinks the foldable's average selling price could hit $2,500, with higher storage tiers reaching $3,000. $3,000 for a phone. I'll just let that sit there. So, who should get the iPhone 18 Pro Max? If you're a photographer or someone who actually cares about manual control over your images, this is the most interesting iPhone camera upgrade in years. Variable aperture, real optical physics, not a filter, not an algorithm, a lens that actually moves. That's worth something. If you're upgrading from an iPhone 16 Pro Max or earlier, the A20 Pro on 2 nanometer plus the camera jump is a meaningful leap. But if you're on an iPhone 17 Pro Max, honestly, wait, the camera is better, but unless you shoot constantly and you specifically want variable aperture, the upgrade math doesn't work this year. Apple's pricing research estimates put the potential increase anywhere from $50 to $300 per model. You're paying more for a phone that's thicker. That might start at $1,399 for the Pro. And the only reason to do it is if the camera genuinely matters to you. For most people, it does. For iPhone 17 Pro Max owners specifically, probably not this cycle. One last thing, there's a new CEO, a new foldable iPhone, a memory crisis driving up prices across the entire industry. And Apple is launching all three at the same event. September 18th is going to be the most interesting Apple Day in a long time. I'll have the full review the second I can. Until then, what's the one feature that would actually make you upgrade? Drop it in the comments. I'm curious whether it's the camera or the chip.